evening. So I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. For those of you who don't know me, and I think I know almost everybody here, I'm Evan Glass. I have the honor of serving as president of the council this year, and all of our colleagues are here. Glad to be here with the MML Montgomery County Chapter President, Rockville's own Monique Ashton. And I know that this is one of the highlights for me and my colleagues over the last number of years. While we were in a more intimate setting upstairs, we've grown, you've all grown, we've all had elections, and I'm delighted that everybody's turned out for what is a really important conversation. And even more important than the conversation are the relationships, recognizing that we can't do this work alone. We have to work with all of our municipalities and our state partners too. But while they're in Annapolis, we're all here in Rockville. And so I just want to thank you for the work that you do. I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Ashton, and then we'll do a series of introductions from the council and from the municipalities as well.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Council President. We are so thrilled to have you all here today, old friends and new. Your term was one that we celebrated. I know that we have one of the most diverse county councils, so I want to honor that, especially given it's National Women's History Month, and you all are making history. So, kudos. This is more than a meet and confer. This is an invitation. It's a commitment to say that the relationship between the county and the municipalities is one that is growing stronger and one we would like to continue to grow. We have some folks who have been at the municipal level now on the county council. We're thrilled about that. I know that Councilmember Stewart wanted to be here as well, but she's dealing with some issues related to a fire community meeting. So just wanted to note that during the pandemic, there was a lot of challenges in our county, and it was because of our relationship with the county council that we came together like no other time before. And it really showed that that doesn't have to end. And we solved tax duplication together. We've been talking about climate action together. We've been talking about stormwater management, safety. And so tonight we would like to just hear what you're working on, and we have a few questions. But know that we're interested in not having just this be a one-time event, that we will have a strong relationship with you, and that will make Montgomery County and our municipalities the best in class in the nation. So with that, I know you're going to do some introductions.
Yeah. So I think what we'll just do is we'll go down the line. If everybody wants to introduce themselves, or more likely reintroduce themselves to everybody, share the committees you're on, and something that you're focused on this year.
All right, see how this goes. Set the tone. Will Jawando, at-large council member. Good to see everybody, and meet some others. I'm chair of the Education and Culture Committee and serve on the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee, which were my committees last time, slightly adjusted. Big thing that we're working on, obviously, is half the budget as far as the school system. We just got the county executive's budget yesterday, which proposes a large property tax increase to fund the school system's budget, highest in history in the county. Obviously, we're coming out of an unprecedented time. Our kids are dealing with a lot. I know you all see it at the municipal level in your schools as well. So that's a big issue, as well as the capital budget. With the cost increases, we just had a session in the E&C today. With the cost increases and supply chain issues, normally we're talking about new projects that we can't do. This year it's about keeping commitments for things we already said we're going to do. And so it's a lot of challenges, but I know we'll tackle it with this group and with you all as well. So look forward to engaging with you on those issues and many, 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 many more.
Hi, my name is Natalie Fanny Gonzalez. I am the chair of the Economic Development Committee for the County Council, and I'm a member of the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee. I represent District 6, which includes its entire area between Forest Glen and Aspen Hill. It includes 3 metro stations, I always say that, Forest Glen, Wheaton, and Glenmont. And it's a pleasure to be here today. I'm not going to repeat everything that my colleague Will Jawanda just said because we're all working on the same thing, so no need to repeat it. But I will mention that the Department of Permitting Services is under the Economic Development Committee, and we're doing a lot of things with them to ensure that the DPS is an agency that will change its culture to be a yes culture, to be problem solvers, to make sure that they're open for business throughout Montgomery County. We had our first session with them earlier this week. My committee has amazing people who are members. We have the council president, Evan Glass. We have our friends, Marilyn Balkin. We have our friend, Lorianne Sales, as part of the committee. And we look forward to working with each of you to ensure that the business community has what it needs to not just stay in Montgomery County, but to expand in Montgomery County. Thank you for your time.
Hello, everybody. It's good to see you. Thank you for feeding us this evening. I'm Gabe Albornoz, and I am starting my second term on the council. I know a lot of people in this room and have had the opportunity and privilege to work with you on a number of issues. I am chairing the Health and Human Services Committee once again, and am now serving on the Education and Culture Committee, which is chaired by Councilmember Jawando. Working on a lot of stuff, just like all my colleagues, but today we got a really exciting briefing on a blueprint on how to end childhood hunger in Montgomery County over the next 3 years. And that will require strong partnerships and alliances with our municipal leaders and our communities and faith-based organizations. So look forward to working with you all on that. And just put a quick plug in, because the intersection of policy issues we're all focusing on right now is important. And Annapolis is considering the cannabis legislation and the enactment of that legislation as we speak. And there are already some concerns about both the reimbursement rate to local jurisdictions. And so we need to unify and align, if we aren't already, in making sure that this is done in a way that's responsible and that gives local jurisdictions the authority we're going to need to implement this law with fidelity. So, and it can't be a one-size-fits-all. So thank you all very much, and I'll turn it over to our Council Vice President, Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. Thank you as well for feeding us. That Oreo cookie situation was spectacular, and as you can tell, I'm quite an expert in this area. I'm Andrew Friedson. I currently am serving as the Vice President of the Council. I represent District 1, which even with some of the changes, I think still represents more municipalities than any other district. And so the municipal partnership really means a lot to me personally, and I really value that, and particularly during the pandemic, we started doing regular calls with municipal leaders to really strengthen that partnership. Those calls have continued. That partnership has only been strengthened. I think it really speaks to what we're doing tonight and in this room. I also wanted to wish a happy anniversary. A year ago this week, municipal tax duplication was signed into law. Was proud to work together with Mayor Councilmember Katz, and Nancy Navarro on the GO committee, as well as all of our colleagues on that, to finally put that issue to bed. And I'm currently chairing the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee, and we have really been diving into housing issues, doing a number of really important briefings to really dive into the details of many of these issues. And I think the last 4 years, the council did more on housing and affordable housing issues than probably any 4 years in the history of the county. Yet we know we haven't done enough. We have a lot more to do, and this new committee has really hit the ground running and is going to continue to dive into that work, and look forward to partnering with you on many of those issues. There's a wide degree of land use authority within municipalities, and so all are not created equally in that sense, but the partnerships are all critical. And so we look forward to being able to work together with you with that as we navigate through these issues, through the $5.8 billion operating budget, and move forward together. So thanks very much, and looking forward to tonight and moving forward.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maryland Balcom. I am the council member for District 2, which is Germantown, Clarksburg, Poolesville, Darnestown, and North Potomac. and Boyd's and Bealsville and Dickerson and Barnesville. It's so great that, you know, my municipality, Poolsville, it's been such a great relationship to build that relationship with them. And in my prior life, I was the president of the Gaithersburg Germantown Chamber, and so I saw very closely what it was like to have a municipality and what it was like to not have a municipality. So I have municipal envy from some of my colleagues here, and I know that you all do very, very great work. I am on the, as Natalie said, I'm on the Economic Development Committee. It's a critical, we can't do anything without a robust economy. And so one of the areas that I'm the lead on workforce development, critical, we can't do anything unless we have a strong workforce, educated workforce. That's really difficult if we don't have housing affordability and transportation. And so it really is an ecosystem with a very delicate balance. And so we're working on that. And then I'm also on transportation and environment. My district has 0 metro stops, which means that we have to think about both transit and roads from the up-county's perspective. And then another thing that I'm working on is engagement, community engagement, and community outreach. My district has a history of not having civic engagement because we don't have municipalities. We don't have representation like the Poolsville. They're so fabulous in letting us know what they want, but the rest of my district doesn't. And so we're working very hard on identifying community leaders, trying to develop civic structures, and that's something that I'm going to be focused on in the next 4 years. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon and good evening, everyone. I'm Sidney Katz, for those of you who are lucky enough not to know me. I actually was mayor of Gaithersburg for a few years. I was the Maryland Municipal League state president, and I guess Ryan Spiegel is and Bridget Newton are the two in the room who have also been state presidents. But I was county president. I was trying to think today, I believe 5 different times I was president of the Montgomery County Chapter. Fred Felton, for those of you who remember, way back when, served with me. And in fact, Dawn and I just came from the retirement celebration that Dave Humpton had for Montgomery Village. He was there 15 years after he left Gaithersburg. So anyhow, we have a long history and a proud history of municipal work, and I thank each and every one of you. I'm the chair of the Public Safety Committee. I'm also serve on the Government Operations Committee along with Kate Stewart and Vice President over here. And I know that Kate is sorry that she couldn't be here because obviously municipalities are very important to her as well. But on the public safety side, public safety has realized for many, many years, and we have issues to deal with, but it is not just public safety that needs to be dealing with this. Our committee, and I think every one of the committee chairs has been associated with joint committees with us. Whether it be mental health, whether it be roads, whether it be school, we can go down the list. Public safety is something that we all need to join together. And of course, and those of you who have police departments, and I know not everyone does, but for those of you who have police departments, it is very difficult to get people that want to get in that line of work. So we've had to, and in some cases, you're our competition. We've had to up our game, and I appreciate that. But the reality is that we all need to work together in order to keep ourselves safe. So thank you. Look forward to any questions.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kristen Mink. I represent District 5, which is one of the new districts. It's the east side of the county. It runs from Burtonsville all the way down through Four Corners, and then it loops out west to include Leisure World as well. Sorry, Sydney. And I sit on the Education and Culture Committee as well as the Public Safety Committee. And I'm also the lead for libraries, which I was proud to inherit from Councilmember Jawando. And so I'll mention, of course, that I'll echo what has been said by a couple of folks so far, that funding our school CIP is really top of mind right now. The budget is tight, and as we have recently learned, it's even tighter than we thought it was even a few days ago. And we have schools in pretty much every district that are on the chopping block or potentially on the chopping block. And I'm a former MCPS teacher myself. I taught for a long time, and I have kids in MCPS. So schools would be important to me anyway, I'm sure, but I also have that personal connection there. So it's really fundamental to the fabric of our society and the health of our county that we make sure that we have schools that are in good shape for all of our kids to learn across the entire county. So finding ways that we can all work together to make sure that these critical projects are not delayed, including the ones that have not broken ground yet, but very much deserve and need to get done, is a very high priority. And then I'm going to mention also, Councilmember Katz got me inspired that, yes, public safety, incredibly important. And so working together with him and with Councilmember Ludke, who's also our lead for crisis response, which is fantastic, to make sure that we are funding up our mental health crisis response teams fully so that we are able to adequately respond all over the county at the speed that we need to do it to actually be there for those mental health crises whenever appropriate, that we have the teams there and on time no matter where or when they're taking place.
Hi, so I'm Dawn Ludke, and I represent District 7, which is not as big as Maryland Balcom's district. Hers is bigger. But between Maryland and I, we have the Ag Reserve, and so I feel like our friends from Poolsville over here have adopted me a little bit, and I'm grateful for that. But District 7 is Olney, Ashton, Sandy Spring, Brookville, Laytonsville, Damascus, Montgomery Village, and Durwood. And I have one metro stop at Shady Grove. So as folks have mentioned, I serve on the HHS committee with Lorianne and with Gabe, and I serve on the public safety committee we're all here in one row, just right here. We're ready. And I am the council's lead for crisis response, which is work that I view as continuing from the work I was doing at the state of Maryland on those issues. And I want to say a teaser of things I'm working on. Well, two bills coming to all of you again next week. That were voted out of the Government Operations Committee unanimously. It's a long day. And I'm very excited about that. So even though I'm not on the Government Operations Committee, efficiencies and making sure things are fair and equitable and compliance are things near and dear to my heart. So I'll probably pop up there from occasion. And I have some other things in the works, of course, related to crisis response. And when I think about the issues we're having with our public safety professionals, and I'm including our therapists in that cadre of employees, it is significant. And one of the big challenges that we face, and I used this term at a town hall meeting, and somebody posted about it on Twitter as though I invented it. I said compassion fatigue. And that is actually, that's not something I came up with. That there are peer-reviewed journal articles about it. And of course, when you're stretched thin, when you don't have the workforce to satisfy the demands you have, and you're carrying people over and extending them on shifts, you have what is called compassion fatigue. And so your first call of the day and your 50th call of the day are very different experiences, right? And so we need to make sure we are adequately caring for our professionals who are engaged in that incredibly important work, because they're meeting with people at their most critical moments. So more to come. Stay tuned.
Gonna have them all. Just gonna have them all.
So good evening, MML, Montgomery County Chapter, the best chapter in the Maryland Municipal League. I used to be vice president of this esteemed body and used to serve on the Gaithersburg City Council, used to be vice president of the chapter, so very happy to be here this evening I serve at large, so I have the pleasure of representing all of the MML municipalities in Montgomery County. And as my colleagues have mentioned, I serve on the Health and Human Services Committee and the Economic Development Committee, which I'm really proud to bring some of the best practices from the great city of Gaithersburg and all of the other well-run municipalities. A bit of what I'm working on, I'm the lead for reducing and eliminating health disparities, especially on the heels of the pandemic. That's not going to be an easy feat, so the work is definitely there, but now we have a chance to evaluate a lot of the programs that were implemented during the pandemic, seeing what worked, what didn't work, how many populations were served, and ensuring that it was done through an equitable lens. Another thing that I'm really excited about is ensuring that our residents, regardless of income, are able to live in amenity-rich neighborhoods. And so I'm really excited about an initiative that I'll be working on with the chair of the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee, Councilmember Friedson, to ensure that we support projects that ensure that residents can live in affordable housing that also accommodates the commercial business community as well. And so more to come, but I'm just really excited to be here with you all and just excited to serve on the county council. Thank you.
Well, thank you to my colleagues, and of course, Councilmember Kate Stewart has a meeting in the district, so she's not joining us today, but it is an honor serving with all of these individuals, the most diverse council we've ever had, the first or the largest female majority council we have had. And so you've heard from us. Now we just want to hear from you as well, so I'll turn it over to Councilmember Ashton to set some rules.
Okay, so since we have a new council and some new leaders in the audience, we thought that, just very briefly, we're going to say each other's your name and your jurisdiction and pass the mic. We're not doing full two-sentence intros. I also just wanted to note, just briefly, Montgomery Municipal Cable is recording until about 7:40, 7:45, and then they'll be breaking down. There is food. Feel free to get up and move. I know this is kind of like a classroom style, but we want to be informal as well. So please just feel free to get up and grab anything you'd like. And then after you do your introductions, I know that several of you have sent in some questions, and I have categorized them by topic. We'll go through those, and then we'll pause to see if there are any additional questions. So I'm going to start off here. I'm Monique LaRock, president of the chapter, and proud to represent the great city of Rockville.
Robin Barr, a council member in the town of Somerset and board member for the MML chapter here in Montgomery County.
Hi, Neil Harris, City Council in Gaithersburg.
Tom Lonergan-Seeger, Assistant City Manager in Gaithersburg.
Judd Ashman, Mayor of Gaithersburg.
Ryan Spiegel, Gaithersburg City Council, former president of this chapter and former president of the Maryland Municipal League.
Bridget Donald Newton, Mayor of the City of Rockville, former president of the chapter and former president of the MML.
Beat that.
Yes, I'm Beryl Feinberg. I am a council member in the City of Rockville, also a former Montgomery County government employee and retiree. I am not a president of MML, but I am the chair of the Hometown Emergency Preparedness Committee for MML, dealing very much so in keeping everybody safe and coordinating all of our emergency preparedness county and citywide and across this, the state. Thank you.
Joanna Welch, Mayor, Town of Garrett Park.
Nancy Somerville, Council Member, Town of Chevy Chase View.
Susan Tice, Manager for the Village of North Chevy Chase.
Darren Bartram, Council in Kensington, and Board Member of the Montgomery County
Chapter, MML.
Hi, everyone. Nate Engel, council member for the town of Kensington.
Tracy Furman, Mayor of the Town of Kensington.
And Ann Lichter, Town of Kensington Council Member.
My name is Jason Small. I am a city council member in Tacoma Park, Maryland, Ward 6. And I have the dubious distinction of also having been a city manager in Prince George's County. So a member of this esteemed organization at the state level guys. So I just have to tell you, you got to reserve judgment as to whether or not this is technically the best one, because I don't know yet. I don't yet know, but I will see.
Remember where you reside.
Good evening, Rob DeSpirito, City Manager, Rockville.
Good evening, everyone. Linda Moran. I'm the Assistant to the City Manager at the City of Rockville.
Barack Matite, the new Deputy City Manager for the great city of Rockville.
Talisha Searcy, Mayor, City of Tacoma Park.
Yay! I don't want you to get left out here.
Andy Leon Harney, I'm the Village Manager of Section 3 of Chevy Chase, and I'm the Treasurer of the chapter.
Hi, Beth Stickler. I'm the manager of Glen Echo and the secretary for the chapter.
Julian Mansfield, Manager, Village of Friendship Heights, and ex-treasurer of the county chapter.
400 years. And he's not in Reno, Nevada.
I'm Link Homing. I'm the Fair Access Chairman, which is a committee of the town of Poolesville, and I also play the Grinch on the side if I need to.
Hi, everybody. Jim Brown, President of the Poolesville Town Commissioners, and our new branding is the playground of Montgomery County.
Shayna Davis Cook, Manager for Chevy Chase Village, and I serve as an at-large member of the chapter.
All right, good evening. Ed Reed, Vice President of the Town Commissioners of Poolesville, and also serving the MML Board as a Vice President.
Go Roland.
Go Roland. Everybody knows Roland. Roland.
So, yeah, we have a few questions. We will be brief as much as we can. I know that we don't have sleeping bags here tonight. So I'm going to take it by thematic area based on some of the questions that members have sent in advance. So on public safety, not an easy topic, but let's go there first. So can you talk about what the county council is doing to try to address a number of things? One, that we're seeing an increase of issues with youth engaging in behavior related to safety and crime. Two, I know you all have been working on trying to address the increase in auto thefts that are happening in the county. And three, just the increase in hate that's happening, racial, LGBTQ, religious, and even in our schools. So if you can talk a little bit about that. Not everyone has to cover the topic, don't feel pressure, but if someone feels passionate to speak, please come forward.
I'll jump in and then I'll turn it over to the chair of the Public Safety Committee and anyone else who wants to answer. So there's a lot to unpack there, right? And we work hand in hand with all of you, especially those of you who have police departments. And a number of us had the honor just last week of being in Rockville. Thank you to the city for offering the Fitzgerald Theater for what was the swearing in of just shy of 40 individuals who are now sworn officers in every single department in Montgomery County. So not only Montgomery County Police Department, but the cities of Gaithersburg, Rockville, Tacoma Park, the Sheriff's Office, and I don't think I've left anyone out there. And so that is one thing that we're doing, and the county executive and the police department have now offered $20,000 in signing bonuses. And I was told just yesterday that enrollment in MCPD is up. Daily enrollment is up nearly 50% on a daily basis since we've offered the $20,000 signing bonus. So more recruits are coming into the pipeline that will help all of us. The hate and violence that Councilmember Ashton referred to, the county executive and I are working on an anti-hate task force. More information will be shared. We just had another meeting yesterday recognizing members of the Jewish faith are feeling the hate. Members of the LGBTQ+ community are uneasy. Members of the Asian American Pacific Islander community. Unfortunately, the list goes on because hate is on the rise for nearly every demographic group. And all you have to do is turn on the news or open up your Twitter feed and you see that. And so we're working on a comprehensive task force. More information will be shared in due time to make sure that we get ideas and recommendations so that we can turn this into action so that our most diverse county can remain a safe place to celebrate our diversity. With that, I'll turn it over to Chair Katz.
Thank you. And one thing I've learned is I should never let Evan speak first because he just said everything. As I said earlier, it is not just a police matter for what we're going through. Every committee that we have is being directly involved with public safety. Everyone. To Evan's points, obviously in the hate and other issues, we are working with Montgomery County Public Schools. As far as recruitment, yes, we've done, and there are people in this room, there are municipalities in this room that forced their hand, as I mentioned earlier, about the $20,000 for recruiting police officers. We gave nothing up till this couple months ago. We didn't have a recruitment dollar. And Anne Arundel County was given $20,000. Well, the reality is, if we're going to want, and we do, the very best people we can possibly have, why would somebody even consider us if they could go to to Anne Arundel County and get $20,000 as a signing bonus? And it's just like when the NFL, you don't get it the first day. No, you gotta play here for a while, and you know there's guarantees and all of that. So we've done that, and the county executive has done that with us. We continue to educate, and that's what it's going to take. We continue to have the conversations, but this is not a one-size-fits-all. There are places, Silver Spring, which is not a municipality, has the most excitement that we have, but Germantown, which is not a municipality, has it as well. It is across the county, and so we are continuing to work. And I know that Dawn wanted to jump in on this one too, please.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the increased criminal activity and specifically address the portion of the questions related to juveniles and also to hate bias and hate crimes in the schools, right? Because we're seeing an unprecedented level of that coming from within our schools. And you know, in my past work, there's a report that gets done every year, and we all know that hate crimes and hate bias have been underreported for a long time. I have to give credit to Montgomery County, which was always extremely inclusive and over-inclusive in what they would report because they felt passionate about it. Some jurisdictions don't. But in 2020, there was a new law passed that required and mandated training for all incoming officers, along with every year, 3 years thereafter, in-service training on hate bias, hate crimes, and understanding all of our state laws and why there are certain reporting requirements, because we're I think we are the only state still that collects data, that has law enforcement collect data on hate bias incidents, not just hate crimes. And there's a policy reason for that, because if there's a lot of hate bias incidents happening somewhere, it hasn't risen to the level of a crime, but it's indicative of a problem, and it's an indicative of a need to do some de-escalation and to get some additional resources in that particular area. With respect to the juveniles, a lot of the criminal issues we're having in the county are cross-jurisdictional, so we are not alone. We're experiencing challenges that are also being felt in DC and Prince George's, and it's transient in nature. We're also having an increase in where people use false license plates, and they're crossing over, coming in, doing a bunch of smash and grabs in vehicles. And, while those are not as impactful in the grand scheme of things, they're really impactful to the person they happen to. And so we have entire communities that are being targeted in that way, and we're doing our best to try to make sure we're following that, sharing information with other jurisdictions, so that if we catch a license plate that's come in, even if it's not the accurate owner's license plate, but you catch the similar vehicle over in Prince George's doing the same thing, it's really important for us to coordinate resources and making sure we're tamping down on that. And there's been sort of a lack of engagement with juveniles and all the changes to the juvenile justice laws that have happened over the past few years. And so I think part of it is some clunkiness with operationalizing the changes that have happened within the juvenile justice portion of the code, and folks understanding how to work with that in its present form. And so there's definitely been some growing pains there, but I'm optimistic about the future, and I am very focused on that and trying to coordinate both locally and with the state, because the state may issue a policy or there may be a legal change there, but whether or not it's affecting or happening as applied locally can cause us great issues. So, and I did last Friday spend my day at one of our middle schools as part of MCPS's Be Well 365 initiative, and I did the same presentation 6 times in a row, so that we covered every student in the middle school. But I gave a presentation. It's about hate bias and hate crimes, and kids understanding the difference, and responsible social media use, and understanding the First Amendment in the context of school discipline. So this is just stuff we need to do day in and day out to make sure we're targeting our young folks, to make sure they have a full understanding and launch into the world with that knowledge. So thank you.
And if I could just jump back very quickly, I can tell you that this is not a new issue. 15 to 20 years ago, I was on a gang task force when I was the mayor of Gaithersburg, and we went, and it was Prince George's and Montgomery County, and we went to both counties. And at times, the gangs have been more prevalent, and at times they've been less prevalent. Now, of course, there's a whole different issue. This is the first time, and I want to mention that Councilmember Albernaz led the charge on this. The ghost guns were never in existence. I mean, we'd never had the problems with guns on the street that someone can just order on the internet. And Gabe led the charge for Montgomery County to work on that. And of course, it caused excitement, and you have people that disagree that what has been done, and the Supreme Court jumped in on that one a little bit too. But the whole idea with the opioid crisis, with fentanyl, we can go down this list, and of course behavioral health is a huge issue. But it is something that this council, I can tell you, we might not agree on everything, but we do agree that we're going to try our best to solve this. And people say, well, it's nationwide. Well, it is. And we can't solve it nationwide, but we can sure try our best to solve it here. Thank you. I'm turning it back.
Thank you. Agree with comments of my colleagues. Just want to add 3 things. Some are kind of happening, 2 are not happening, and I think they should happen. One, I'm chair of Region Forward for COG, and last year I brought two of my colleagues together to Councilmember Lukey's point, Councilmember Hawkins, at-large member in Prince George's, and Councilmember White, at-large in D.C., to have a discussion at Montgomery College in Tacoma Park, or in Silver Spring rather, about regional increase in violence. There were several recommendations and thoughts that came out of that, and that's now we're working through my role at Region Forward to bring that conversation to the region, because there is a lot of overlap, and while our police departments tend to coordinate to some extent, our other agencies don't do as much of a great job. When you talk about the youth issue, all of us were young at one point. Andrew still is, and he's only 2 years, I think 2 or 3 years younger than me. But anyway, we like to do that. That, you know, when you're a young person, we know from brain development, you make bad decisions. But when you're
Was that directed at you?
Well, no, that wasn't.
It was about the Oreo.
I don't know.
Take a rebuttal here? Or?
No, that was
a
not
lead-in,
directed at you.
I can tell you.
The point being, but when you're desperate, when you don't have a job, when you don't have an after-school program, when you don't have a summer job, when you feel like your school isn't supporting you, when you don't have health care, go down the list, you make dangerous bad decisions, like carjacking, like smash and grab. And we all know that, but I think we have to remember that these issues are connected to the massive wealth inequality, the lack of health care and mental health, and we have to double down on that. And the third thing, you know, Gabe, I know, is going to speak next. We've been talking about it. We have to have a full court press it's March Madness tonight, full court press, go Maryland, on youth development and positive youth development, and after-school programs and out-of-school time. This is the time to lean into that. It's heavier than we've ever had. Our kids are crying out for it, and that's something that I know we'll be focused on. And I've also encouraged the county executive to communicate the plan. And I would say this to other leaders. I wrote an op-ed and I said, you have to talk to people every week about what the statistics are, what you're doing, what's happened, what isn't working, and I don't think we've done a good job of that yet. And it's really the executive that has to do it, because we're 11 people. It's hard for us to say anything the same way. And he controls the agency. So those of you who are mayors and municipal leaders, I think we all need to communicate, because in the absence of that, you just watch the news and you don't know what's happening. You don't know what the plan is, and you feel insecure about that. And I think if we had an articulated plan that was connected and data-driven, people would feel better about at least we're going in the right direction. So I think that's something we need to do as well.
Amen to all of that. I'll just, a couple of tangible things. So many of you have your own parks and recreation departments, or certainly spectacular parks and different opportunities for family gathering. And it's never been more important than right now than to create a time and space for our families to be able to get together in an authentic way and have fun. And we as government leaders have a unique opportunity to do more of that. The Book Festival, one of thousands of examples of opportunities for our families to gather in a way that's affordable, accessible, fun, engaging. And as Councilmember Jawando said, we do need to go all in on bringing back what we lost during the pandemic in terms of youth development. We had worked hard to build this really countywide infrastructure of after-school programs. And of course, it all went away. And so, and we're struggling in our schools. We're really struggling after school as well. And so we also have to uplift and acknowledge and recognize the folks that are on the front lines doing this work, because they are exhausted. They are overwhelmed. And it doesn't cost any of us any money to regularly send out tweets, to regularly use our platforms to thank them for what they do and express our deepest appreciation for that work. And then finally, one thing that has emerged, and I've been in the youth development space pretty much my whole career, we need to start focusing on family development, because mom and dad are really struggling when there are two parents. And so we have to make sure that we support the entire family unit in addition to the youth, because we're seeing now, I've never seen before in 24 years of doing this work. It really is astonishing. So those are great questions, and there's no easy solution, but working together, I think we can make a dent.
Just wanted to thank many of you for not only talking about the issue, but also looking at what are the root causes, not what, but why, because these are symptoms of bigger issues that we have to solve. And I know many of us are talking about our budgets at this time, and thank you, tax duplication reimbursement, because we needed it. But we are looking at not only safety on the enforcement perspective, but how do we prevent that by helping people. So thank you. I'm going to pause and see if there are any, before we move on to the next topic, any public safety questions. We'll take one or two.
As a person who was both a city manager in Prince George's County and a council member on Ward 6 in Montgomery County, with effectively Prince George's County in my jurisdiction, I am at the corners. We call our thing the crossroads. And so fundamentally, there is a bit of an issue in the way that this conversation is being discussed, because one of the elephants in this room is that interjurisdictional cooperation is the #1 issue with regard to public safety in this area. I can tell you specifically because people can walk out of one place in my town, in my ward, and walk across the street and not be policed. Or they can walk this way out of the store and walk across the street and not be policed. And the irony there is one of those groups of people is Prince George's County Police, and the other one is Montgomery County Police. And one of the things that I know from having been a city manager as well is that when you have interjurisdictional issues, because you are on a border with someone, they don't come. And that's the reason why you have to have a police force. And it's the reason why you have to pay people to incentivize them to come to the municipalities. And because most of them are already retired, they're willing to come to a place where they think it's not going to be as spicy. The irony is, it's spicy where I live. It's not spicy for any other reason than socioeconomic realities that are caked into this county. And it's ironic that we would sit here with coded language and talk about things that have to do with socioeconomic realities, the lack of preparedness and opportunity with regard to public programming, and any number of other things that all of you know. I would suspect that some of you know these things at this level or other levels, and as you transition up with ambition on your mind, you forget them. But some people don't forget, and I'm not going to sit here and let her have to be the person who has to light all of you up for all of the coded language that you used, because it was offensive, and you didn't even notice. And so I believe that you're committed to these issues, but their long-term intractability and the interjurisdictional cooperation issue that is omnipresent here as we talk about how good a police force we have is really a problem. I wanted to talk about the purple line and all kinds of other things. I have a chronic illness, and I sit, and when cortisol gets going in my system, I creak and I pop. So rather than sit here and creak and pop and say things in the background and make these people uncomfortable, I just like to say explicitly that you can do better than this. Like, if you really care, and if you have these concerns on your mind, and you've had their concerns on your mind for a long time, why is it the same? Because it's socioeconomic realities that you refuse to deal with. I drive all over this county because I have to take kids to practices. I take kids to practices in places where there are no other black kids, except my son. We wear the grays for our baseball team. There's 2 black kids on that team. They played in Montgomery County. We don't even have a little league attached to the actual county. They have it in other places. And when I drive around all these places, and when we go practice in Aspen Hill, I see where you guys have chosen not to spend money and where you've chosen to write kids off. I see where you are happily ignoring language issues in sanctuary cities and any number of other things. And just don't do that. It's just not cool.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. I just wanted to know, I did hear some folks talk about interjurisdictional work that you're trying to coordinate and be better. I agree that there are a lot of systemic and disparities issues that we have to address in this county. And I see one request for a response, and if you could, go ahead.
Just really quickly, I don't know if you're familiar with the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments.
Oh, I was actually on the Region 4 committee when in its inception, because I worked there for the United Way. You guys aren't the only people who do these things.
No, but we can't fast track change, and we have a lot of competing priorities, and so it takes time. And I'm glad that you ran for office. I'm glad that you're at the table where you can impact change and you can raise the issues and then work collectively to address them. I'm actually working with Councilmember Lutke and Councilmember Katz to look at a recreation center in Montgomery Village. We're working with the city of Gaithersburg. This is how we work together. We talk, we plan, and then we activate. but it won't happen overnight. But thank you for your contribution. No, it's okay.
Thank you. On a lighter, simpler topic, because that's going to take a lot of work, and we're here for it. Some of our jurisdictions have commented about the fact that there are several HOAs in our communities, and they've had some challenges with the County Commission on Common Ownership Communities. They have noted that the staffing may be an issue. They feel like they need more support. There are claims that are not being addressed, and the cities and towns really rely on this service, and they opt into it. And so we'd like to know what can be done to get this to be fixed.
Thank you. I think I've been nominated by my colleagues on the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee. No good deed goes unpunished to a certain degree. This is a really important issue. It's something that we have heard quite a bit about. We just took up a bill that is going before the full council next week on Tuesday to address some of the kind of high-level dynamics related to the common ownership communities, but there are much deeper operational challenges and issues that need to be worked through. We use the opportunity as the work session of that bill to begin that conversation. We're not going to sort it out legislatively. We have to sort it out operationally. There have been some significant staff changes at the department, specifically to address and deal with these issues. There is a commitment from the department to address some of those challenges. I do appreciate that one municipality in particular that I may or may not be staring right at right now has taken significant efforts to try to bring your municipality under the regime in order to make it simpler, in order to make it easier, in order to make the process work better. And there have been challenges with that transition. And that is not, I don't think, a mistake of moving it into one county system. I think we should have one county system, but we have to work out and sort out these issues. The committee will continue to work on it. We have begun that conversation. We certainly haven't ended that conversation, but we do have commitments that have been made by the executive branch and by the Department of Housing and Community Affairs to work on them. And you have my commitment, I think the commitment of all of us on the committee to continue working on it.
You were staring in the right direction.
Lucky guess.
To talk about another pressing issue of our time in terms of the environment and climate change, we've been watching, you've been doing some strong work policy-wise. Many of our municipalities have been dealing with issues of stormwater management. It's very expensive. So we'd like to just get a sense of some of the priorities. Maybe one or two people can speak to stormwater management, expanding access to renewable energy. I know that you just put out your EV survey, so I saw that come through last night. And then lastly, will there ever be a county-wide composting that municipalities have access to?
I'll jump in and then allow my other T&E colleague who's here. And Kate Stewart is on transportation and environment as well. So stormwater management, really, the nuts and bolts of local government. It's not sexy, but here in Montgomery County in the DC region, we know that climate change is most adversely affecting us through rain. And that rain is causing flooding. And so WSSC recently came to us regarding their budget and the capital budget. And so there are billions of dollars of investment that need to move forward. They come with rate hikes as well to help them pay for the operating and capital budgets. And they are doing everything they can to update and modernize their system, and that's on the WSSC front. At the Department of Environmental Protection and the county side, we're doing more. We are applying for more grants, getting more state funding, and I believe using some of the pending infrastructure money for some of these purposes as well. Clearly, we need to coordinate with you all and the municipalities to see how things can be improved, but it is something that we are working on. It is the environmental disaster of our region and our time, and I don't know if Councilmember Balcom has anything else to add.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the tree canopy, which is part of the
stormwater management and just the whole environmental aspect. And we're taking up legislation on Tuesday to ensure no net loss of reforestation. So it's a reforestation bill, and doing it not in conjunction, but kind of leapfrogging the state. The state has a bill right now, and so we've been working on that for, the better part of, well, we inherited it. The prior council had been working on it for a long time, so that'll pass. The composting issue, as a new person on the council, it's something that I would really like to see countywide. There are pilots going on. I think that when we look at the waste stream and when we look at what are our options for the incinerator, when we look at options for what do we do with solid waste, it very often comes back to compost. So I would love to see that happen, and it would make sense to do something countywide. I don't know what the parameters of that would look like, but I think that there's probably a lot of agreement on the council to move forward on that.
I think stormwater management is sexy, actually. I do. It's actually one of the issues that I'm very passionate about. When I was canvassing to get into this position, it was on issue number one, actually issue number two. The flooding map for the county is coming up pretty soon, and I look forward to that. Basically identifying places where we really need to focus on to ensure that our communities are safe. As you know, about almost 2 years ago, a kid died in Twinbrook in one of the buildings. He got stuck in one of the basement apartments when it rained really hard. So these stream rains are gonna keep coming. So it's really on top of my agenda, although I'm not in that committee, but it's something that I really care about, and I look forward to working with all of you on this, on the forest bill that is coming up next week. I actually, when I was on the planning board, I was the vice chair of the Montgomery County Planning Board before I resigned, before the drama. That was an issue that I actually asked the staff to start working on, and I think it's so cool that now I'm on the council and I'm gonna get to work and vote on it. So, so yes, it's been a while, but hopefully we just need to make sure that when we talk about sustainability and being tree huggers, and we really mean it. You know, we gotta walk the talk, and I'm gonna talk about later on, or work on the waivers that we give to all these big development applications. When I was on the planning board, I did not vote in a couple of applications just because I didn't think it was right. So stay tuned on that one. It's gonna be one of those issues that it will be very controversial. But I think that when you really want to make a difference and want to make a change, you gotta, face controversies and move forward and evolve as a community. So I look forward to getting your feedback on that issue later on. Not now, because we're dealing with other things.
Can I just quickly add two quick things? I agree with much of what colleagues have said. One, I've been advocating for multiple years to double the storm drain general capital budget in the CIP. We made modest increases because of limited funds for a couple of years. Then last year, to his credit, the county executive did follow through on that request and did double the storm drain general, which has allowed us to do more, but not nearly enough and not nearly as many projects as we would want. But that is a significant and dramatic increase, but we need to do a lot more, obviously. And then the council passed a bill that Tom Hucker and I worked on, the Green Buildings Now Act, that last year was the first year in the budget. This year, again, continues, but it dedicates 10% of the fuel energy tax to the Green Bank to allow them to leverage those funds to do green retrofit projects. It's the largest commitment in climate in the county's history. Last year, it was a little over $18 million. This year, it's almost $20 million. That money can then be leveraged significantly in the private sector, and now because of the Inflation Reduction Act, it could be leveraged even further because of the federal funds that have come in, and so that can be upwards of $100 million a year in support for buildings and for businesses and residences to be able to do the type of green retrofit projects that they need to do to make their buildings much more energy efficient. And the next step of that, the next stage of that, is going to be really focusing in and honing in on helping individual property owners, single-family homes and townhomes, and condos to be able to do this. Right now, it's more in multifamily and more in businesses and buildings, but we need to be able to help residents one by one do the type of projects that cost $50,000, $75,000, $100,000, which they never could afford to do, and need government help to do it. We talk a lot about, if we raise the bar, raise the standards for our environmental sustainability, which we should be doing, we need to provide ladders so that residents and businesses can actually achieve those standards. And the council has really done a lot in this arena, but obviously there's a lot more we can and should be doing, working with you.
One question, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to, hi, Nancy Somerville with Chevy Chase View. Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the stormwater issue, and I really appreciate you mentioning getting rid of the waivers and the work that you all are doing. But there are a few other recommendations that are in the climate action plan that would be fantastic if they went forward, and I haven't seen anything in any of the reports about them being taken up. So I just wanted to give them a shout out because there's a lot of support for them. One, of course, related to the waivers is increasing the stringency of the requirements. Obviously, we need a lot more green infrastructure. You've addressed the hard infrastructure, which we need as well, but we need both. I mean, it has to be both. And a number of our municipalities have already put in place stronger regulations than the county has. Others are considering it, and some that already have them are looking at having to make them even more stringent. It would be a lot more effective and easier if that happened at the county level, and that was one of the recommendations in the climate action plan. And then the other one, of course, is the stormwater credit trading, which has worked well in the district, and there's a really good model there. And those are all in the plan. I just want to really encourage you to move on those quickly, because as you all know, we're behind the 8 ball, not just on the mitigation, but also on the adaptation.
I appreciate you talking about the climate action plan. The plan, I believe, had more than 700 recommendations associated with it. And progress was being made. The county executive, with an appropriation that the council provided, hired a consultant to go through those hundreds of recommendations and see how we start taking bites of it. And then the pandemic happened. And so now that we just got the budget, that plan and the Department of Environmental Protection will come back to us, and we'll see what their progress is and what they have planned to do with the money that they've requested in the next year.
I'll just add really quickly. So we're neighbors. I live in Chevy Chase View, and Andrew and I took a walking tour last year. Actually, it was almost 2 years ago. But I'm with you. So our office is going to follow up and see what we might be able to enact a little bit more quickly, because the stormwater management, and I just want to mention too, this was taken into account when we passed Thrive 2050 in the climate chapter. We specifically called out stormwater management as needing to be an emphasis in development moving forward. So good points.
Thank you. I'm just doing a time check. We're going to take 2 other topics and then see if there are any other questions. Heads up, economic development / your budget, and housing / Thrive. Okay. So on economic development, we've seen that you've been taking a number of efforts to make Montgomery County well known as the, brain center, tech center, and biotech. So just what other things are you doing to attract and build back our economy?
Well, we want to make sure that Montgomery County is seen as a life science center of the nation. So making sure that we bring ARPA-H coming here to North Bethesda, being very specific is key. And making sure that we're sending that signal to Governor Moore as well, because we cannot do it by ourselves. So that's one example. As I mentioned during my opening remarks, DPS, people underestimate the power of the Department of Permitting Services and the impact that they have for the business community, ensuring that they are streamlining their processes, that they have a yes culture, making sure that they're really open for business and making sure that, that we're giving opportunity to everyone to thrive in Montgomery County. We're going to continue a series of sessions on different aspects dealing with economic development, and also look forward to the budget as well and how the budget will impact what we're doing in the county. And I'm sure Council President Glass that's one of the main topics, I will say, that he took on as he became president of the county council, so I think he should.
I appreciate that, Madam Chair. So when the council was elected and we knew that it was going to grow from 9 to 11, I thought this was an opportunity to create some changes internally. And the change that I worked very hard on, and all of my colleagues know this, was creating a new committee. And it was the Economic Development Committee. And I'll give you this statistic, that data point actually, that over the last term, over the last 4 years, of the 6 standing committees, the Planning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee, the FED committee, met for 60% longer than any other committee, dealing with housing and zoning and master plans, all the things that we know that workhorse of a committee does. But it didn't really spend that much time on economic development. And as we all go through elections and have policy conversations, we know how important economic development is, and that's why I wanted to create a standing committee that had devoted time to talk about it. So whether or not you want to talk about bringing more life sciences and biotech to Montgomery County, or you want to talk about the nitty-gritty of the Department of Permitting Services, which is in Montgomery County, which is in the Economic Development Committee, or visit Montgomery County, visit MoCo, right? Which is one of our tourism agencies. All of that is in that committee. And once we reached consensus to create it, there was so much interest in it, it's now the largest committee with 4 members.
I just want to touch base on this one. So the other, several other industries, hospitality, we can't forget hospitality. Montgomery County is a leader in hospitality. And then also looking at intriguing industries like quantum. That's one of the, I think, a burgeoning industry that we are primed to look at. But from a committee perspective, from a traction perspective, we really do want to look at Montgomery County as a business-friendly community, and we've started with permitting. We've gotten some commitments from the county executive on that. But I also just, near and dear to my heart is entrepreneurs and real support for women, minority-owned businesses, small businesses, and the county executive has made a commitment to do that. And I think that we look forward to working with him on creating a one-stop shop. If there's a business out there, no matter what door, no wrong door policy, if a business needs help, they can come to the county, and regardless of where they enter the system, they can get help. I am committed to making sure that that happens.
And I'll just add that we did just meet with the Department of Permitting Services, and I think the county does really good work, but we have a problem with sharing all the good work that we're doing. And so during the meeting, I talked about some of the programs, some of the incentive programs, the Toolbox program with the City of Gaithersburg, the City of Rockville. There's so many good programs that are already available that we just don't know about. And so during the meeting, the new director of permitting actually had PIO update the website. So if you go to the Department of Permitting Services, you can now see it's a one-stop shop. The county executive updated all of the incentive-based programs that businesses can take advantage of. I also joined Councilmember Balcombe to attend the county's Economic Development Corporation, and it's another vehicle that we can use to hold not just ourselves accountable, but to ensure that we're doing all that we can to showcase and leverage the assets that Montgomery County has to attract, retain, and grow businesses here. And so their campaign, if you have not heard, is be next. And so continue to tout that initiative to be the next big thing that comes to Montgomery County and calls this place home. And again, looking forward to sharing more about the ZTA that I'll be introducing with my colleague to showcase even more of how great it is to do business here, to bring projects here, to really advance the communities in Montgomery County.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I listened in on the meeting, Natalie and Lorian, and it was a great meeting on the DPS. One thing I was a little concerned about was the fact that the number of years that they predicted to get a new program going and then adding more years on for training. Can you just answer that or give me a reply on why that will take so long?
Is one of the follow-ups, so they're supposed to come back. I'll make sure that you have the schedule for the next meetings. One of the biggest concerns that we have, how long it takes for them to produce things, and even during the budget, since they had to come in front of the econ committee to talk about their budgets and the things that they need to get things moving. I'm a numbers person. Numbers never lie, people do. And I believe in measuring success and how can you get from A to B and C and tracking that. They're not doing that, so we're gonna make them do that. Not just then, we have a joint session with the Education and Culture Committee and MCPS came in front of us, and that was my passionately, maybe I went too passionate about it, making sure that they are letting us know how they're spending the money, how they're tracking success, how they're making sure that kids are actually moving up the ladder when it comes to performance. How is it possible that kids are in second grade, especially Black and Latino kids, are underperforming in such a way? They're the future workforce. Everybody should be concerned. So looking forward to the NCPS meeting on the budget. I'll be there. And all of that is connected. I think Montgomery County is a wonderful place. I'm the only immigrant here, as you can tell with my beautiful accent. But this is a place I call home, and I feel like I'm responsible to make sure that it's better than when I found it, and making sure that they track success is key for that. Seeing, measuring things like if this school is doing great, how come this other one is not doing amazing? Like, what are they doing that this other one doesn't do? And with permitting services, why is it that this business in this location is doing amazing and this one is not? Tell me. So stay tuned, and I will love your feedback. We can sit down too and all that good stuff.
Thank you. We did have a dedicated session with MCPS because we do have some concerns on disparities, and I know that we could spend a couple hours on that, but the state report cards did come out, and there's a lot of work to be done. So I'll just make the statement. The other statement I'll make, two things that I didn't cover on public safety. No need to have a long conversation, but all of us are concerned about public safety on our roads, particularly state roads, and we met with some county staff to put our collective voices together with a specific ask for the states to do more faster. So that's a priority for us. So I just wanted to note that. The other thing that many of us are thinking through is when we do, I'm personally happy that we're not criminalizing cannabis. I think that there are too many people in jail for it. We do have to think through, what does that mean? How do we look at proximity to our schools? So there's, so those are some things to work out. I know some of our municipalities are dealing with that. The last question, and then I'll just take, see if anyone has any final things. I know we want to head out soon, but housing is a huge issue. I know it's not a simple answer. We won't get all those answers tonight, but if you could just do a quick highlight on what's being done to address affordable housing, attainable housing. And then we do have some municipalities who have questions about the implementation of Thrive and whether there'll be a master plan process or a ZTA process. And I'm sure there'll be a follow-up question from the crowd on that.
I'll start on housing, and then I'm sure we're going to get questions on Thrive, and we can follow up on the Thrive piece. And I'm sure each of my colleagues on the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee will want to speak to this as well. So we have a housing crisis. We have committed to housing targets. We have to be very intentional and serious about hitting those targets. I talked earlier on about some of the significant efforts that we have made in the county related to housing. We have funded the Housing Initiative Fund, our primary vehicle for funding affordable housing, greater than we've ever funded it before, and we're looking to take it even higher. As we move forward, we've created a number of new funds, several of them working with the county executive. There's a naturally occurring affordable housing fund and also an opportunity fund. Those are generally preservation funds, looking at existing multifamily residences that the county can buy or nonprofit partners can buy that the county can help, either by exercising the right of first refusal and stepping in a private transaction or otherwise. And we created in the last council a $100 million fund that I helped to spearhead, 2 tranches of $50 million through the Housing Opportunities Commission. It has become a national model. There are jurisdictions all over the country now that are following this model that we have done, a very cost-effective way to create what is often referred to as social housing. And it has been a huge success. That $100 million fund, the goal always was to start with the Housing Opportunities Commission and to also move forward with a nonprofit fund as well. Stay tuned on that. Might be hearing more about that during this budget session, but there's a lot of conversations that are ongoing and a lot of support happening in this regard. So we are focusing on these issues. We are investing in these issues. Ultimately, we know that we need more housing and we need more affordable housing. And we need to make sure that we have more housing at every level. We're not coming close to hitting the targets that we have at the affordable level and deeply affordable level, but also at any level. We just aren't simply building enough housing in the county and haven't been for a couple decades. And we're not unique. Frederick County isn't, Prince George's County isn't, basically every suburban jurisdiction in the country isn't. But just because everybody else has the same problem we have, just like in public safety, doesn't mean we shouldn't be stepping to the forefront to address these issues. There's a lot more work to be done. The Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee has stepped in with some really in-depth and significant briefings to look at not just the money that we're deploying, but how well we're deploying it, and working with the Department of Housing and Community Affairs to figure out how we can get the money out faster, how we can make these projects happen quicker. And you heard earlier, my colleague and I, Councilmember Sales, have a proposal related to affordable housing to make it easier to make that happen. So stay tuned on that. But there's a lot of projects, a lot of work, a lot of efforts that we've been undertaking, but a lot more work that we can and should be doing, and hopefully we can do it in partnership with you.
Thank you. And that is a great overview. The 3 Ps: produce, preserve, and protect. Renters, and all of those 3 things have to happen. And I think we've made the last council, I was proud to serve. I was just talking to actually a former Councilmember Reamer today, and maybe Gabe did too. Okay. We were reminiscing in part about just how much work we did on the housing, on the production fund, with HOC, and various things that Councilmember Friedson mentioned, and very proud to have done that. There's more to come on the production side. But part of that production is connected to the second part of the question, which is, it's infill development at this point. We're going to have to move to smaller units and different sizes. And I know that's a big controversial thing, but when, a couple years ago, I introduced the More Housing for More People package, which was a ZTA to allow for missing middle housing, and a bill to stabilize rents in transit corridors where they're the highest. And we're going to need to have a conversation about both of those things, and we are. To the question of whether it's a master plan process, Natalie and I have been talking about this, or a ZTA. I think we are a very different county. You all represent that. Like, depending on where you are, the reality on the ground is different. And so every community, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And I think we need to take that into account as we move forward with the conversation. But we need to have a strong principle that we need to develop more housing. There are 2 rent stabilization bills before the council right now. And we're going to take that up. There's public hearings into this month. We've made progress on that. That's something that we need to deal with. And I know your jurisdictions are seeing those prices as well. We're almost at nearly close to 40% of the county rents, and that's going up every year. And it's disproportionately black and brown an immigrant, and we have to have a solution there as well. So I'm confident that we will get to the right set of solutions, and we are taking that up at the committee, but the whole council cares about it as well.
I'm just going to make a quick clarification. We have two bills, as Councilmember Will Jawando mentioned. One is a rent stabilization bill that he sponsors. The other one is an anti-rent gouging, which is very different, which is the one I'm sponsoring with other folks. So that's all I wanted to say.
Just very quickly on housing. So I was at an event a couple of weeks ago, and it struck up a conversation with this gentleman that was a property owner in Bethesda. And this gentleman wanted to preserve and proactively preserve some of the housing units within his apartment complex. And so I connected him to DHCA, and then boom, he's taking advantage of some of the funds that Councilmember Friedson just mentioned, but didn't know they existed, didn't know where to find them. You all in your conversations and your travels within your municipalities are having these conversations as well. And so I think there may be an opportunity as a follow-up to have some information sessions specifically within the municipalities and invite some of the property owners to hear about these incredible opportunities that we don't want just sitting there. We want to proactively engage in partnerships. So I'm sure there's something to that, and would love to follow up with you and work with the chair of the committee to see what we can do to make that happen.
I just wanted to talk just briefly about a small sliver of the pie, and that's county-owned land. And one of the first bills that we passed as the council was any county-owned new construction is required to look at feasibility to co-locate affordable housing. This was Andrew's bill, and I think it's really exciting. And there are a couple projects right now that are looking at the possibility of co-locating. It's something that every single one of us talked about when we were running as candidates, and I think it's great for the county to have some skin in the game.
This is why I love serving with Maryland Balcom, because she reminds me to mention my own bill in the response to a question.
And the question was, about Thrive and about housing, and I'll make one additional pitch that as of Monday, we officially have an open call for 2 new members of the planning board. So please share that with your constituents, share that with your neighbors, that we're looking for a chair and the 5th member of the planning board. Applications will be due by the beginning of April, and we will work on that process as we undertake the budget, and the goal is to have those 2 positions filled in June. But I just want to close this by thanking every one of you for being partners in this work with every one of us. I know the format was not so much a conversation, but everything we talked about is a discussion, and the discussions will continue. Thank you, Councilmember Ashton, for your leadership this year and in prior years. And let's just continue having conversations. I know that there are a number of people, particularly council staff, who did not introduce themselves. Make sure they introduce themselves to you or you to them, as they do a lot of this work themselves, just like you all do, and especially the city managers and the other officials within city government. So thank you for spending your evening with us and for making Montgomery County a wonderful place to live, work, and play.
Hear, hear.